This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
I'm Roby Brock. Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. I'll be joined by John Brummett to talk about things happening in Arkansas politics. We'll also take a look at the upcoming Hoops for Kids' Sake charity basketball game. Members of the Arkansas legislature will square off Senate versus House on Wednesday, March 1st at 7 p.m. at Central High School in Little Rock. A little preview of that game with Raymond Long. He's the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Arkansas, one of the beneficiaries of it all. Stay tuned for Talk Business and Politics Daily next. Talk Business and Politics Daily is brought to you by Wright Lindsay Jennings Law Firm, Impact Management Group, and these sponsors.
We proudly deliver reliable, affordable, responsible power across Arkansas. But demand for electricity is strained by the elimination of sources we need for always-on reliability. And adding intermittents like wind and solar cannot replace workhorses like coal and natural gas that we all count on. Power must be balanced for your needs and our mission. Reliable, affordable, responsible. We're the Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas.
Connection. It's the heart of what we do. It's why we work to better the communities where we live and work. It's why we're expanding to get people connected and create digital equity programs that support affordable internet and digital literacy. We're leaders for positive change. From the way we empower our people, clients, and communities to the way we care for our planet. We live our values every day. We're Cox Communications, and we're pleased to connect with you.
Together we can create in Arkansas that places children and families at the very top of the agenda.
We can create the type of Arkansas that we have always imagined.
Arkansas Advocates as an organization is the glue that can put all those families' voices together.
Welcome back to the program. Joining me now, John Brummett, columnist with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. He has effectively jinxed the Razorback basketball team. If they don't make the NCAA March Madness tournament, it's because he tweeted something positive about him at halftime. John, I'm putting the blame of the state on your shoulders.
You know, I can handle it, and I probably deserve it. I did watch the first half of the Alabama game and was inspired by how well they were prepared, how well they executed, their effort, and the fact that they had like an 8 or 9 point lead against this very good team down there. And then I got carried away and said something positive about it, and I knew better than that. And that's, blame me if you want to. I also watched it in the first half and then decided just to go do some work and not watch it in the second. And that may have been sort of a reverse jinx, because it usually goes the other way. If I watch it, they don't do well. But tough loss. But I still think they're going to make the big show. So don't put that on me just yet.
Maybe if they make their free throws too, that would be also pretty helpful. They were pretty bad in the second half on those free throws.
And they're normally pretty good. It's just it's quite an emotional roller coaster being an Arkansas Razorback fan, and some of us have been dealing with that for a half century. So that's the way it goes.
All right, let's begin our conversation on politics with the LEARNS bill. It sailed through the Arkansas Senate last week. It was a day-long committee hearing. A lot of people got to voice their frustrations about it, but at the end of the day, it was a predictable vote. And then when it went through the Senate, I'd say there was a little bit of surprise in that Senator Jimmy Hickey voted against it, and there were a couple of no votes or present votes as well, but still a comfortable margin of victory. What surprised you about the debate last week?
That there was a Senate vote against it, that there were 7 votes against it, and there were only 6 Democrats, and I'm thinking, what in the world happened? Who did that? And it was Jimmy Hickey, who you remember was President pro tem last year, and though he's about as conservative as the next senator, he has developed over the years this respect for the institution of the Senate. He ran partially to be President pro tem because he thought Jim Hendren, ACE's cousin, was just letting the Senate be a rubber stamp for ASA, and he thought the Senate had institutional responsibilities. And it turned out that he cast this vote based on that. That we've got members, even Republicans like Kim Hammer, saying we need to change this bill. We got a sponsor admitting that among other things, there's simply typographical errors in here. But under Bart Hester, who has preemptively said, I'm for whatever Sarah proposes, who is saying, we're going to move it all out, get it out this week because she wants it out. And the House is going to take up some clarifying language in an amendment next week, and then they can send it back to us. And Hickey has this idea that the Senate ought to do its own due diligence. Yeah, and that's what he did, and that did surprise me a bit. This week, the House will put an amendment on there, get it engrossed, and lose about a day or two before it comes back to the Senate. But it's all going to pass, as we know. And the amendment is not going to be in great substance. The one matter of really substance is the bill doing away with fair dismissal procedures for teachers. I think they're going to put in there that a teacher can make an appeal to the school board if, say, a principal fires her because she gave a bad grade to a prominent local person's child, for example, that there ought to be some recourse. I think that's coming, as well as other mostly technical stuff.
Yeah, there is. That amendment was filed late Friday, but it is out there on the website. It does exactly what you said it did. It also sets up a kind of an audit process for the inspector general or attorney general to supervise some of the funds that are going to be going back and forth between public schools and wherever they may land.
Through banks, by the way, right? Banks will, for an administrative fee, will handle these accounts, as I understand it.
I don't know
right?
if it has to be banks necessarily. I think the language in there is just a third-party administrator of some sort. So it could be something other.
Who will take a fee for that? Who will take a fee? They won't do that's part of the money. Okay, so that's where all that is, and I think Sarah may have to wait till Friday or even until next week.
Yeah, I think it'll be next week. I think it'll be next week. Start the week off, the following week off with a bill signing ceremony.
Yeah.
Now you've written a column on Sunday that talks about pop-up schools. I do think we are going to see an explosion of online learning around this that'll be geared more towards the homeschool community, particularly with broadband expanding in the state. So give me a little bit of what the point is that you're making in your column.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't make it so that you could understand it, but let me
well,
see.
I may be asking that question just so you get a chance to talk more in depth.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it's a little bit snarky, Roby. Sometimes I'll do that. I'm basically saying, here's the way this bill has revealed itself in the last several days. Vouchers up to 90% of what the state spends per pupil for public schools, which is 90% of 73 or 75, but I'm rounding it up to 7,000. Basically, that's what that is. And 7,000 will not get you in Episcopal or Little Rock Christian or the Episcopal school. It won't even cover half of. So I don't think we're going to have much effect, much substantive transfer of Little Rock students to private schools locally, the existing ones. I don't think middle class, working class parents can pay the difference. But as I say this morning, a little bit fancifully, what you can do out there is create these pop-up schools out in the hinterlands where there are no private schools, run them on the cheap, and you get 4 years under the law as a new school to get the accreditation from some reputable accrediting organization, which you have to have that, but you get 4 years if you're a startup. You got 4 years of making some money out here, and churches, religious groups could open in their existing classroom, particularly for K through 6. Jeb Bush, I'm reminded this morning, has a foundation that has a blueprint for pop-up schools in just this occasion for the transition of a voucher system. And so that's more likely to be any and not in the first year because I think it's so limited in its phase in, but that's where it's going to be felt by the public schools more than probably in Little Rock to Little Rock transfers from public to private because they won't be affordable. And I don't, just to be clear, I don't approve of pop-up K6 with no accreditation, just putting up a sign out there and having 4 years before they get accredited. But that's, of course, I'm not for vouchers in any case. But that's the essence of that column.
Well, will these pop-up schools have librarians so that they could be prosecuted as pornographers?
Well, it depends on the books. It depends on the books and the local prosecuting attorney. You want me to go off on the library thing? Is that where you're?
I think that was what I was probably setting you up before. That's not my express interpretation of what that law does. But
this law, which now is not yet, it's passed the Senate. The Senate passes everything, and still pending in the House, and it's been amended way down, thank goodness. But here's what it says: if a parent objects to a book that it discovers its child has, and the book originated in the school library or in the public local library, the parent can complain formally to the librarian, who must appoint a 5-member library review body. And if the parents don't like what the appointed review group does, they can go to local politicians, quorum court, if it's in the county library, city council if it's a city library, school board if it's a school library, and take their case to a political body. And then if they order that book removed and some kid shows up with the book at home, that book that's been removed, then the local head librarian can be charged with a felony for distributing obscene materials. I think it's contingent, and there's so many steps there that, and the prosecutor would then have to agree, like the one in Georgia. He doesn't have to do what the grand jury says on Trump, for example. The prosecutor would have to agree to bring charges. He'd have that constitutional discretion. But that's what it provides. And in order to do that, it specifically removes librarians from their decades-long exception from obscenity laws, just to protect them for this very thing. The very thing of what's obscene to one school board or city council might not be to another. It's unnecessary. Even my friends writing editorials for the Democrat Gazette, writing some quite conservative ones favoring this school choice thing. This morning they're asking, do we really need to go set up this system for our librarians? We used to support the distribution of books rather for among our children and in our communities without making our librarians susceptible to this kind of thing. I don't know if he can be stopped in the House, but, and then I'll stop on this, but what's happening is this cultural conservatism that Republicans have embraced and I think exploited politically has taken strong hold in the rural areas of the state. And a senator like Dan Sullivan in Jonesboro gets elected where they pass some ordinance partially defunding libraries, promising to go down to Little Rock and do something about these books that our kids might get. And so, and he gets down here and all the other cultural conservatives want to help him because they may have their own cultural conservative bills and they don't want to go down here and vote for obscenity, for heaven's sakes. And so they find a way to amend it to some basis, and then they pass these kinds of things. That's the era we're in, and it is a spectacular waste of time, and it makes potential trouble where we shouldn't have any. So that's that.
So last week we talked about this work requirement for Medicaid expansion.
Yeah.
This week we talked about the progress the LEARNS bill has made. We're talking about these culture wars. Next week I predict we will be talking about sentencing reform because
Right.
I think those bills will start getting filed. This is my 30th year in politics, and I spoke to a group this week. I went back to 1993 to see what we were talking about in that legislative session. We had just passed the Medicaid 1 cent soft drink tax in December of 92 in a special session. Jim Guy Tucker, the governor at the time's first session was about sentencing reform. There was a big sentencing reform package and a big education package. And then all of the other sideline things that were being discussed that session, they weren't cultural necessarily, but they were silly nonetheless. There was two bills filed to make one city a Purple Martin capital of Arkansas. It was Lake Village versus Fort Smith. And they wound up compromising with Lake Village is now the Southeast Arkansas Purple Martin capital of Arkansas. And Fort Smith is the Western Arkansas Purple Martin capital. So there were silly things going on back then, but they seem a lot more harmless than some of the sideline things that we seem to get into now. Do you recall any famous crazy bills like that?
Well, I brought up one the other day that seemed to amuse you no end, the backward masking bill that said that we would not allow the record companies and the long-haired musicians, I'm paraphrasing liberally, to continue to put satanic messages in their phonograph records that children could hear if they played them backwards, which I never knew how to play it backwards. But that was brought up and I think got a lot of votes, but in those days, they happened in the void early in the session while things were still getting going. And there were a lot of lawyers on the Senate Judiciary Committee who took seriously whether this is constitutional or reasonable. One, BB later became governor. It was just a different time. We're in a raging Fox News nation. We're less Arkansas now than a part of this Fox News nation. People are getting their news, getting their Arkansas news from Fox News more than from you or me. I'm sorry. I wish it weren't so. You may be up there closer to Fox than I am because you're online. So that's just where we are. And as I explained in the last question, once you promise the folks back home you're going to fight this cultural conservatism, and once most of the senators and legislators from the rural areas promise the same thing, then they all get down here and you can't stop it. Asa Hutchinson somehow, for a while, did a good job of keeping this stuff from being introduced. He would use Walmart or Tyson or somebody to lean on people not to put these things in, because once they're put in, they're passed. If they're put in, and they're going to make national news. And he thought harm Arkansas's moderating image and modernizing image in terms of economics. That day's gone. Sarah's not stopping anything. She likes it. Cultural conservatism is the national Republican theme, and she certainly understands and executes that theme as vigorously and well as anybody.
All right, I am looking at our Zoom time here, and our time's about to expire. I'm going to have to pay for an upgrade. So he's
Well, I'm sorry about that. I just have a lot to say.
No, it's all right.
I need to tone it down. All right.
All right. He's John Brummett with the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. We will look forward to reading your columns as the week progresses. Thank you so much.
Roby, great pleasure as always. Bye-bye.
We are back with more right after this. Talk Business and Politics Daily is brought to you by Wright Lindsay Jennings Law Firm, Capital Advisors Group, and these sponsors.
One of the things that I really liked about UAMS College of Health Professions is that they set me up for success. I chose UAMS because I felt like it was a great place to work. My grandmother was diagnosed at UAMS for multiple myeloma, and I felt like it would be a great way to pay back the place that helped my grandmother so much. And that's why I went in the healthcare field in the first place, is to help someone just like they've helped my grandmother.
For your education and healthcare needs, choose UAMS.
This is what we work for. The moments you live for. The joy. The heart. The wonder. At Entergy, we're dedicated to powering each moment. Today and for future generations. So we're leading the way with a cleaner, more reliable power grid to power every day. because these moments matter. We power life. Entergy.
Well, in case you missed it, this weekend I sat down with Raymond Long. He's the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Arkansas. His organization, as well as the Children's Advocacy Centers of Arkansas, will benefit from the Hoops for Kids' Sake charity legislative basketball game that'll be held on Wednesday night, March 1st at 7 p.m. at Little Rock Central High School. Members of the Arkansas House, members of the Arkansas Senate will square off. Raymond Long gives us a preview of the game. On Wednesday of this coming week, March 1st, competition will meet comedy as the Hoops for Kids' Sake legislative charity basketball game returns. Activities begin at 7 p.m. at Little Rock Central High School. Proceeds will benefit Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Arkansas and the Children's Advocacy Centers of Arkansas. Joining me now is Raymond Long, Executive Director of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Arkansas. Good to see you. I'm sorry, you're CEO. I called you Executive Director, didn't I?
We're just doing the work.
Yeah.
We're just getting the work done. Whatever title I need.
CEO. Tell me a little bit about this game. It's coming back after a couple of years of dormancy because of COVID-19, primarily here, but it raises some pretty good money and it raises some profile.
No, absolutely, man. It's raised a total of $250,000 over the past, I believe, 10 to 15 years. And so, man, it's an opportunity to have some fun, see some good competition, but then raise awareness for obviously two great organizations. And so it's been 2 or 3 years since the event has taken place, and so we're excited to actually bring it back inside of Central High School. Yeah. How was that, right? Considering that our current governor is a alma mater of that great school.
I don't know if it's going to bring out good competition, though. You said it's going to bring out good competition. I've watched a lot of these games before. I do not consider the basketball level of play particularly good unless there's a couple ringers in there. So, are you going to play? Are you just going to be on the sidelines coaching?
I'm a fan of the game. I play basketball in my spare time, and so I'm not a legislator, and so I would just stick to the legislators. I hate to cause any hard feelings by my good basketball skills, and so I'll sit this one out, but I'll try to build those relationships since this is my first time participating, and see if I can hop on a team next year.
Do some color commentary. How about that? You just sit there and be an analyst for the game.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about your organization, Big Brothers Big Sisters. Tell me what you guys are doing now post-pandemic and kind of where you see the organization positioned and headed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Post-pandemic, the pandemic, obviously, for an organization like ours that depends on that contact, the one-on-one relationships, right? We obviously struggled during the pandemic period, but there's a silver lining because we were able to really make some tweaks to our model. Also, the pandemic, it exacerbated some of the issues that the children that we served are facing. And so because of that quiet time, we're better prepared to really provide that social, emotional support that every young person needs to really thrive in any other area in their life. And so what that looks like is we've expanded our programming to include some group mentoring opportunities. We're now more focused on being inside of various school districts inside of Pulaski County. And then we've really upped our model to really focus on interest-based mentoring. And give you some examples, girls who code, right? Mm-hmm. Sports buddies, which is really targeting the involvement of men, right? Actually mentoring. And then one thing I'm really excited about that, I'll have to come back on and talk about later is we're going to launch our first workplace mentoring opportunity with the agency I think you'll love, but I won't spoil it today. But just want everyone to know that we're getting into that workplace mentoring, workforce development space.
That's Raymond Long, CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Arkansas. You can catch more of our interview at talkbusiness.net. Hope you'll come out for the game and raise some money for two good causes there. That's all for today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. I'm Roby Brock. We'll see you next time.